In world-class sport environments, we don't talk about working hard. That's like amateur hour. We talk about recovering intelligently. We talk about playing with passion. We talk about playing with intensity, of course. How do I make sense of me in the world? How do I think about my future? Are you honestly making a difference?
How do we push the bounds of human potential? Where is our limit? Today, you're going to meet someone who's helped quite a few people quite literally push boundaries beyond atmospheric type limits. That's even a word. This individual has worked with Super Bowl champions, Olympians, professional athletes, entrepreneurs, billionaires, millionaires, you name it. He's probably helped them out in some way. I'm so humbled and privileged to welcome the author, podcaster, father, athlete, husband, and just overall kind, gentle human being. Please welcome Mr. Dr. Michael Gervais. How are you today, sir?
Wow, what a fun intro. I'm great. Yeah, thank you. And I'm really looking forward to speaking with you as well. So appreciate you.
I think a cool place to start would be, I heard this great hot take by Tom Brady earlier this week. Maybe you saw it, about how he was able to diagnose what the opponent was doing quickly in order to make decisions and take action on those decisions. He talked about processing speed. Now, for those of you who don't know, Dr. Michael Gervais has worked with the Seattle Seahawks exclusively as a performance psychologist. And this, I feel like, is a unique area where you could contribute quite a lot of value. So he talked about processing speed as a competitive advantage. What's your take?
Well, I've spent my professional career understanding the best practices for high performance, and maybe what the next step after high performance is, like true mastery. And so what he's pointing to is actually backed up from laboratory research, is that what ends up taking place. So first and foremost, our brains are optimized for speed. If a saber-tooth tiger runs or an 800-pound gorilla runs in the room, our body and brain are optimized to be able to do something really quickly. Fight, flight, sometimes if appropriate, even freeze. So what he's speaking to is a genetic predisposition for optimal performance. Now, what happens for most people is that if you think about cooking porridge, go back to the porridge is too cold, it's just right, or it's too hot, is that what happens for most people under high stress conditions is that they cook it too hot. So they become too activated for the task at hand. And so what he's able to do for speed is to find the right pocket to gather information quickly. And that pocket is when you are calm and focused. Those are kind of the two most important variables. When you think about environments of speed and accuracy, which is what most athletics is, not all, but most, speed and accuracy, what sits underneath of that psychologically is calm and confident. And so we want to be able to better understand what those two do. It forces us to be more present. So when we are present and we have the psychological skills to be fully present in environments of speed and accuracy, or consequence environments, then we can eloquently adjust to whatever's coming our way. Pause for just a moment, because mastery is working at the intuitive level with speed and accuracy. So it's just below conscious awareness most of the time, where there's just this felt sense. And that comes from not the 10,000 hour rule. That is not what research suggests. And I know it's a popular phrase, but research about mastery and high performance and expertise, as the original researcher Erik Erikson suggested to us, was somewhere around 17,000. But 10,000 sounded easier and a little bit better. Okay, so to work well in environments of speed and accuracy, which are high performing environments, we have to be calm and confident so we can be more present with the unfolding activity that's taking place. And when we have thousands of reference points, experiential understandings and points of view and reference to what good and substandard and amazing looks like and smells like, then those reference points inform, when we're present, only when we're present, how to be able to adjust accurately. So when Tom Brady says that kind of, pithy little thing, that insight, he is right on the money. Maybe few, if any, have ever done it as good as he has across any sport. And so Yeah, we should pay attention. Now, I just want to point to what the science would suggest and what are the practices for you, me, your community to be more calm, be more confident so that we can be more present and have the ability to adjust eloquently to whatever the environmental demands are. That is high performance.
You mentioned a few times calm and confident is like the bedrock for high performance. I have a background as a criminal prosecutor at SVU in the Bronx. So I experienced performance anxiety because of the nature of the gravity of things. Someone's life and liberty is on the line. There's a lot of justice at stake. There's the victim, the defendant. Something can go wrong, terribly wrong, even if you think you're fighting for the right thing, right? And justice, I've learned, comes in all sorts of shapes and sizes. So dealing with those circumstances gave me butterflies. Eventually, I learned how to show up, and Stoicism played a role, high performance psychology played a role. That point of mastery where being calm is at the focal point. How can people cultivate a sense of calm in their professional and personal lives?
Cool question. And I wish there was a simple little one tool, tactic, skill that I could point to that says, this is the one, do this and you're good. But realistically, there's like this ecosystem and there's a ton of tools. And so the tool has to work for you. And I will share as many tools as you want to go down the rabbit hole. But the ecosystem is really important as well. And so in our kind of modern search for hacks, tricks, tips, shortcuts, secrets, which there are none. Okay, so that's a first principle of mine. And you don't want me as a high performance psychologist, and I don't want my surgeon or my tattoo artist but I don't want them to be hacks. You don't want me to be a hack. Why would you want to be a hack? And I'm not saying you, Jonathan, I'm speaking to like anybody. So it's more of an ecosystem. It's kind of like psychology is more like the Panama Canal, where you've got to have a bunch of things that slide into place just properly so that the boat can be lifted in the right way and it can move forward in the intended design. So what is that ecosystem? It's knowing yourself. It's really knowing yourself. So there's a set of practices and tools for self-discovery. And so that sits right at the center of the whole thing. And somebody wants to say, look, just do your breathing exercises. It's not enough. It's good. I have a breathing training practice. Somebody might else want to say, oh, it's all about self-talk. Yeah, that's good. But it's not enough. Somebody might say, fake it till you make it. And I say, get the fuck out of here. There's no chance that that's ever going to work in a real environment. So this fake it till you make it thing, sorry, Jonathan, if this is one of your go-tos for
It's
framing. Yeah, no, it doesn't work because you know that you're full of fill in the blank. You know. And so as soon as somebody chin checks you and you're faking it, game over. You're on your heels. You go into a overactivated kind of panic type of feel. It doesn't really work. So we go back to like first principles, which is a self-discovery process. Yes, there are specific skills we can train for your mind. I'll give you all of those in a minute. We want to build a psychological framework, which is like, how do I make sense of me in the world? How do I think about my future? That's all framework stuff. And the more sturdy a framework is, the taller the skyscraper can go. So we want to build some framework stuff. Then we need to have a world-class recovery system. Because let's say I've got all of that stuff in place. I know who I am. I'm dressed accordingly. I got a spark in my eye. I'm ready to rock. Everything's really good. Like I speak to myself and coach myself in a world-class way. Okay. But I'm exhausted and I'm tired. My brain is going to do something that it's supposed to do. It's supposed to like get me out of that environment as opposed to staying calm in it. So we need self-discovery, mindset skills, psychological framework, recovery, and then the fifth most important pillar of this ecosystem is having some sort of awareness practice. And I point to mindfulness. 3 awareness practices, mindfulness being one, journaling being another, and then a third, conversations with people of wisdom. So if you want to be more aware of how your thoughts work and how your thoughts impact your feelings and emotions, and how your feelings and emotion impact your thoughts, and how the world around you impacts your feelings and thoughts and and vice versa, how you shape your environment. We must be aware of how thought 1 and 2 impact feeling A and B. We must. And so that's where mindfulness for me does sit at the high table, but it could be journaling. It could be conversations with people of wisdom. And so I'm asking you to consider first and foremost, before a small tactic on breathing to be more calm, which is kind of the master tool for being more calm. It doesn't work if you're walking into an environment and you go, shit, they're going to find out that I don't really know what's up. Man, I need this thing. You don't understand. If this thing doesn't go right, it's game over for me. Or I'm not even aware of my thinking. And before I know it, I'm like in the rapids. I can hear the waterfall on the other side of it. And it just all feels overwhelming when I've talked my way into that state. And or if I'm exhausted from just burning the candle at both ends and I really don't have the internal resources to focus deeply in this moment because I'm so fatigued. In world-class sport environments, we don't talk about working hard. That's like amateur hour. We talk about recovering intelligently. We talk about playing with passion. We talk about playing with intensity, of course. And we want to shape how we engage with the athletes and the environment to be so switched on that it's like, yeah, I can't wait to get back at it. Like, it's not like, fuck, man, this thing's a grind. It's like what the coaches and all the support staff and the athletes are trying to do is create a vibe that is really fun to compete right at your edge and to do that day over and day over and day over. Hold on. Why at the edge? Because that's where the unlocks happen. But it takes a lot to get up to that psychological, emotional, and physical edge. That's the trifecta. It takes a lot to get to that edge. We need to recover in a world-class way. And then so we can do it again. And the teams and athletes and normal folk like us that don't do that, we end up having these little knick-knack injuries. And for us professional sitters, I never thought I'd be a professional sitter in my life, but for us professional sitters, the knick-knack injuries, they don't, it's not sprained ankles, but it's just like tightness in my hips and like my mid back is just kind of feels a certain way. And then my posture's not as great as I want. And when our postures kind of roll forward a little bit, what ends up taking place is we send signals to the brain like, I think we're ready to fight. Because when our chin is dropped, our shoulders are forward and our hands kind of come up. Sounds like I'm on my cell phone, right? Well, in that posture, 200,000 years ago, I was ready to fight, a tribe mate or a warring tribe. No different than holding a phone for most people right now. So the brain is like constantly switched on. So you say you want to be more calm more often. There's a whole ecosystem that can unlock that. And if you say, I don't want an ecosystem, just give me the tool. I'd say, just get right with your breathing. But it's only going to take you so far. It's good. I have a breathing practice every day. It's good. And there's 3 types of breathing: down regulation, capacity building, and focus breathing. And, choose the one that fits most accordingly.
A holistic approach. You called it an ecosystem, and that really resonates because it's not one-dimensional. It's something that you have to cultivate and study and immerse yourself with. I mean, a few of the aspects that you shared, from awareness to breath work. I mean, breath work, candidly, was how I was able to calm myself going into those situations, just because I learned about the power of nasal breathing from a physical injury, from not recovering like a world-class athlete. But because of breath work, I've become an ultra marathoner, and I've been able to train my body to operate in a way to handle a lot of output.
I would say not because of breath work. I would say breath work has been an important tool in unlocking, more access. But like the reason I asked you earlier is like what you said is like, I had performance anxiety because that whatever you were going to say next was giving me the insight of how you think. Okay, so I had a said state because whatever that next tag is, now as a psychologist, I'm like, oh, here it comes. And you said, are you ready for this, Jonathan?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Are you starting to sweat yet?
A little bit.
I know, I did a keynote earlier this morning, and in my intro, the guy, it was for Salesforce, and he was doing his thing, and it was great. And it's 3,600 people, so it's a nice size room. And so he's doing this nice little thing, and then he looks over at me, and I could tell he's ready to kind of just go at some questions. And I was like, oh, this is about to get spicy, because right before he's like, okay, listen, I'm going to pass it over to you. And then it was more of a fireside. And then we're going to go back and forth. And so I just love those moments where it's like, oh man, what's about to happen here? All right. So you said because. Say it again. Because
of the gravity of the situation.
Okay. There's your philosophy. All of your psychology rests on that idea. When there's high intense, a gravitational pull to intensity, high stakes environment, because of that, I'm anxious. And you can rewire that whole thing. First and foremost, the way you'd want to rewire it is like, hold on. Does the external world dictate my internal experience? Shit, it kind of does. I don't like that. No. Hold on. How did the greats do it? Yeah, they kind of work from the inside out. Their psychology actually influences the external world. So you can switch that ordering when you say, hold on, who am I? What are the principles that matter most to me? What is my purpose? And am I up for the challenge, no matter what the conditions are? Those are very important questions, right? What are my first principles and values? What is my purpose? And am I up for the challenge, independent of the environment? Take a look at Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Mother Teresa, Jesus, Buddha, Confucius. I can go on and on about so many of the greats. They worked from the inside out. They were true to their principles, and they didn't train their mind. They were just foundationally committed to first principles. And then so you go from, if you're working from that direction, all of a sudden breathing is like this nice little thing, because maybe you just got a little extra butterflies, but bring it down just a little bit. But it's not like a survival mechanism of trying to figure everything out, that the external world dictates my internal experience.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Inside the Inspired. My name is Jonathan Cohen, and I have a quick favor to ask you. If you're getting any value out of this content, please take a second to subscribe to the channel. You help us reach more people, and you can also stay up to date with all the latest content coming your way. Thank you so much for tuning in. I think when I look back at those times, that I definitely operated from a place of letting the external world dictate certain outcomes. And over time, I've learned how to focus on what I can control. And I mean, you wrote a fantastic book on fear of other people's opinions and how to navigate that. And it definitely played a role. I think ultimately, like, being up to the challenge, to your point, and I think that comes from cultivating the confidence through preparation, through experience.
Confidence doesn't come from preparation. It doesn't come from past success even. You know, you've had lots of success in your life, and you've done a lot. And people that have those types of experiences, they tend to build the easy model for confidence, which is when I get some success in doing something, I get feedback that I was good. Oh, I like how I feel when I get that feedback. So when a couple buckets go in and I get this instant feedback that I'm a good shooter, no one had to tell me anything, but people are cheering, or you just kind of know, like, oh, it's working. And then so it comes from the outside to the inside. So if I get a couple buckets, I'm good. If I get a couple successes, some sales, some whatever, like, oh yeah, I get the feedback. Now I feel good. I can't tell you how many pro athletes use that model until they come to a point where they're like, why do I think about heavyweight boxing? Why do I got to wait for that dude to hit me as hard as a human can hit me for me to feel like I'm in it? Why do I got to get a couple jabs off? Now I'm good. Why don't I come into the cage or the ring? Why don't I come into the ring confident? Why don't I start my day with confidence? Why don't I start my game with confidence or practice? So again, that's reorganizing from the inside out. So confidence comes from one place and one place only: what you say to yourself. Now, what you say to yourself has to be backed by something. So fake it till you make it doesn't work. Just saying I'm great, I'm da-da-da, it doesn't work that way. You have to find the ways that you speak to yourself that build yourself, that rests on some real stuff. Find ways to speak to yourself that build you, that rests on real stuff. I'll tell you a quick story. So as a cage fighter, I'll stay with the cage fighting analogy here for a minute. And he was a championship fighter, about my size, shaved head, lumpy as a human can be, tattoos crawling up his neck, cauliflower ears, look like he's earned, his career path. huge pause, big presence. And we're in this small little room in my office, this is early in my career. And I said, what's it sound like when you're at your best? What do you think he said, Jonathan? What would you say if I asked you that?
You got this. One foot in front of the other. Keep moving.
You're backing yourself up.
Yeah.
Right? And so he went to that special place first, which is like, what do you mean, Doc? There's nothing going on. It's just like happening, right? Flow state, the zone. And then I asked him to do what you just did. Like, no, come down a level. Like when it's in your head, when you're in your head, and it's good now. It's good to be in you. And so when I said, what is it? He says, okay, excuse the language one more time. This is his quote. He said, I'm a tough motherfucker. So I, unimpressed, I said, how do you back that up? And he looked at me and he said, when I was 14, I whipped my dad's ass. I'm a tough motherfucker, dude. Unimpressed, I said, got anything else? And he looked at me and he says, yeah, my last cage fight. I was in an end game position, full triangle chokehold, broke the chokehold, put him on my back, dragged him across a cage, dumped him, and finished the fight. Dude, I'm telling you, I'm a tough motherfucker. That's what it's about. I said, okay. I leaned in one more time. I said, got anything else? And he leaned in and he says, with this incredible eye contact, he says, if somebody were to ask me one more question, I just might choke them out. I was like, holy shit, I really pushed myself here. Like I weigh like $180 and he's like, 260, 6% body fat, like trained, And so I share that with you because he could say to himself, I'm a tough human. And he had real stuff under the surface that allowed that to be a true statement. So it's knowing how to talk to yourself that backs yourself, that's based in something. So that's what we ask all of our athletes to do moving forward. No one will ever argue with the power of self-talk, ever. It's foundational in psychology, but it needs to rest on something. So instead of trying to sort it out when you're walking into the presentation room or the living room to have a intense, loving conversation, intimately vulnerable conversation with somebody, or fill in the blanks wherever there's some intensity in the air, is to well before that, do this work. What do I say to myself that builds me? And for each one of those, I call them epic thoughts. Have 3 things in your life that give you the right to say that. So for example, for me, I can do hard things. That's flat out like, I know I can do difficult stuff. Why? Bang, bang, bang. And when I'm going into a situation that I'm like, yeah, this is on. I've earned the right to say I can do hard things. And sometimes I got to pull them forward because I'm a little bit like sideways. Or sometimes those 3 things, right? And sometimes I just say it and I'm like, that's right, let's go. So I say, do that work well ahead of time so that you can have that fire in your belly, that spark in your eyes, that way about you, that like where Jonathan is at his best. And I'll do one last thing on confidence here. When you said it, you were like half right, which it comes from past success or whatever. I've worked with best in the world. And like there's one gal that this was going into her 4th Olympics and she had 3 golds already. She didn't have it dialed in. She was still nervous. Okay. And she still had some doubt in there. So past success alone, for 16 years, she was the best at her sport. It was a single sport, meaning individual sport. Still didn't have full command of her mind with all of that tremendous power of success behind her. So the last filter, if you really want to understand confidence, is, get after it in training, put yourself out to the edge on a daily basis so you earn the right to speak to yourself about doing hard things, being tough, being poised when it matters, whatever. And then be clear about what those are. And when you speak to yourself, the research would suggest that when you say, I'll use me for an example, Mike, let's fucking go, as opposed to, I can do this. Which one do you think is more powerful? Well, I changed the verbiage here. Hold on. Mike, you can do hard things versus I can do hard things. Which one do you think has more potency according to research?
The latter.
The former. I was so surprised too. So when you put your name in it, you create just a little bit of space, the same way that you can coach other people a little bit better than you can coach yourself. So this is, oddly enough, using this interesting mechanism of what's called like a metacognition. Is that when you speak to yourself using your own name, it sounds crazy, but when you do that, you give yourself a little bit more believability, because it's like this other voice saying you can do it, as opposed to I can do it. And then quickly you're like, wait, but can I? Yeah. So a couple of things on confidence there, which does help with confidence. Help with being calm. Breathing does even more so help to be calm. But the big thing is this whole ecosystem that we're going to still point back to.
That's unreal that you could talk to yourself in the third person and it can be more effective from a performance aspect. That is absolutely fascinating.
According to research. And I think if you try it out, like just because it works in a laboratory doesn't mean it works for you or me. But try it out and see if you feel something about that.
Have you found it works for you?
Yeah, totally. I thought I was weird. I thought I was like when I surfing and playing sports. Surfing was my sport. And when something didn't quite go right, and then I'd be like, come on, Mike, get it together now. Trust your feet. Let's go. You got this. Like it's you and my name. And I thought I was like kind of an oddball with this thing. I am a misfit, let's be clear, but that really works for me. And then when I read the research, I was like, oh, I am at home. My people, like we talk to ourselves.
But it's also cool because when you talk about misfit, I mean, I would just say, or gently agree, it's because you were kind of like you were a pioneer in this space. Like you were exploring high performance at an early stage, even back when you were in college, grad school, like really taking to this particular topic. And, I was reading your book. I was like, wow, you really had the foresight and eye for high performance at an early stage. And, we talk a lot about creating and spotting opportunity. Was that more of a curiosity or was it an opportunity when you found the opportunity to go and explore high performance?
Oh, that's cool. Thank you. I think it was more like, wasn't so eloquent of what you just described. It was like, I needed it from me. I had some dragons I was wrestling down inside of me, like I knew I was capable of more, but I didn't know how to get free. I didn't know how to back myself. I mean, the ecosystem that I was talking about came much later, but I was like, how do they do it? And so like the tools were kind of the first piece, which is like, they breathe and they talk to themselves and they're more present and da-da-da. And I just got obsessed with like, man, there's unlocks here. I need it for me. And then once I noticed it, like it was really working for me, I just felt compelled. I was like, I got to share this. This is like the best pie I've ever had. Like I want to share. I'm Italian by nature. So this pie, like I'm like, we got to share this thing. And so that's what kind of led me down the path to want to help others.
The other thing we talk a lot about is mental toughness, and it goes scientific, research-based aspects. One meta-analysis that I read, and I'm curious your opinion on, I believe it was out of China, where they talked about the role of narcissism within mental toughness and the positive correlations between narcissism and mental toughness, but negative correlations with if I recall correctly, with Machiavellianism and psychopathy.
So you're talking about the dark triad.
Yes.
As that's known as,
Yes.
psychopathology, narcissism, Machiavellianism. Yeah. Scary, 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 scary individuals.
The interplay there. How can, is mental toughness a good thing?
So is mental toughness a good thing? Yeah. For me, mental toughness, the center of mental toughness, which is like I can do hard things, I can stay in it, I can persevere, I'm resilient, I'm agile when it's prickly and hard to kind of stay in, is born out of optimism. So optimism, it would be on the light triangle, the light triad. The dark triad are people that it's about them, it's about power, and there's a destructive nature to other people. They just don't care, is to be fair. And honestly, to be even more fair to a true sociopath or a narcissist is like they don't feel pain. physically they don't feel pain. So if they were to cut off somebody's arm to save, I don't know, something, money or the person's life or something, and the person's like pissed off or upset, or other people are pissed off or upset, they're like, what do you mean? It's only an arm. If they were to cut their finger or their arm off, they don't feel it. They want to keep their arm and finger, but it's more intellectual. Like they don't actually feel, for the most part, physical pain the way that we do. And physical pain and emotional pain are intimately linked in the brain. So it's as if they actually don't feel emotional pain. And there is a disorder, a brain disorder of people that the nerve endings in their body don't work right and they can't feel like heat. And so imagine if you couldn't feel heat and you just kind of are resting on a stove. Like you don't last very long in this world if you're not quite sure of how dangerous environments work. I'm giving up some space for the actual disorder. The behaviors are egregious and intolerable from the dark triad. And they're very scary, very dangerous. They are the wolves amongst us. Mental toughness, though, is born out of optimism, which is like, hold on, something good's about to happen. Something good could take place here. Like, let's stay in this thing. I can feel like this thing just might break open. Let's go. So optimism is a trained skill. And it's a belief, a fundamental belief that something good is about to take place. You train this skill by a whole set of tools that you can, I can share with you if you want. But that is at the epicenter of toughness. And toughness is staying in it when it's hard, doing hard things over time. And mental toughness for me is about a discipline, not a narcissism or a sociopathic way of going about it. It's just a disciplined way of staying in something when it is incredibly hard. For most people, we're talking about emotionally hard. It's physical challenging is to get to psychological and emotional challenge. And so again, I'm not down-regulating or creating less importance for physical over emotional, but for most people, it really is emotionally hard to do things more than physically.
I found that when doing hard things and cultivating a sense of mental toughness, I try to pick challenges that, and my audience knows some of the stuff that I've done that are just outside the bounds of my skill set, that I've kind of like subconsciously prepared for.
Give me one, Jonathan. Give me one.
I told you about the ultra marathon running in September. I did a 58-mile ultra marathon, no walking, no headphones. We raised over $29,000 towards an organization that supports children with special needs, learn real life skills to integrate into society. That one was probably the hardest. I did 1,018 pull-ups in 4 hours, raising another like $25,000. $20,000 for that one, for the same organization.
Amazing.
And so like, I never really train like crazy for these things. Like I'm running now more than when I trained for the ultra. I do more pull-ups now than when I trained for the pull-up challenge.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, right. Yeah.
But like there was this, 50 to 100 reps a day, or 5 to 10 miles. I guess I was doing like 50-ish miles a week at the time.
That's a lot now.
And
that's a lot.
I guess like now it's, at the time there'd be like a 30-mile run and then like a 5-mile run the next day. But like now it's kind of like 5 to 10 mile runs like every day.
Great genetic coding.
Yeah.
You got some, way to press on that. Yeah.
I think just mentally it's there. But I appreciate that. And so I say that all very humbly because there was a time I got cut from like every team I ever tried out for, right? So there's definitely some kind of correlation there. I digress. But I've always tried to pick things that are right outside the bounds of my skill set. And like, 1,000's a lot. Could I do it? I don't know. But I'm going to tether some meaning to it. And I think I'll be able to get it done. And obviously the results speak for themselves. But like outside of nearly passing out and not knowing how to fuel, I accomplished the outcome I was after. But when it comes to cultivating a sense of mental toughness for those purposes, in your experience, how can people cultivate mental toughness?
Okay. Yeah, it's cool. So I would go to optimism, clarity of a compelling future, and connection to a larger purpose. So if you get those 3 variables in place, And then of course you're speaking to yourself as you're doing it, but you know your purpose. So you're connected to something bigger than you. You've got a compelling future that you're working for. Like something that's amazing later. And you have built the skill, the fundamental belief that things work out. There's no naive optimism that I'm going to ever suggest, but like this belief that, come on, it's going to break open. Let's keep going. And that's what optimism rests on. And if you do those three things well ahead of time, so you train all of those, and then you become super disciplined with how you speak to yourself. And you can catch your mind going to places that don't support the vision and the purpose and the belief that it's going to work out well. And if it doesn't work out well, you'll figure that out too. That's still part of optimism. And kind of those would be the three I would index on.
What's the role of discipline within all of this? We talk a lot about the self-talk, the optimism, the mental toughness. How does discipline factor in?
I was on the Finding Mastery podcast. I had Toto Wolff on. So Toto Wolff is the Mercedes Formula One manager. He's the kind of the head person for one of the most winningest teams ever. I asked him a similar question. And he said, Mike, I travel internationally and I travel every week, long stretches. And if you were to ask anybody on our team, they would say that they see him, sitting and just staring for the 10 hours. Just staring towards the front of the room. And he says, for some people they write, but I need to think. I need to really think about things. And when I write, it doesn't come out fast enough and the pages aren't big enough. And so my eyes are open, but I've got this huge whiteboard and I just really think. I'm like, oh my God, that's a disciplined human. So that's one small example. I'll give you another one. Bob Bowman came on the pod as well. And he is Michael Phelps' coach. And so I asked him about what did he observe that made Michael Phelps so great? And he said he was uncommon with mental imagery. So he would spend a lot of time seeing success in his mind well before he even arrived at the moments that he wanted to experience that success. And he didn't do it in this kind of schoolboy way where it was just seeing success. He would spend time seeing adversities that could come up on race day and then solving it in his mind. So not just planning, but putting himself in first person, swimming. This is one of the examples. He said at the Olympic finals, swimming full out, tough race, tight. He's in it. Everything's rolling. He's just on the last 8 strokes. And then his goggles would flip up. He would design that in his mind. His goggles would flip over, flooded with water, and to him still stay the pace, effectively blind. And sure enough, that did actually happen in one of the races. It's not because he saw it and he manifested it. That's not how this stuff works. But he was ready and prepared for a scenario that could happen to anyone. But he already had experienced it. And so it was and he knew he had a frame of reference, even though it actually didn't happen. He had a frame of reference to help support him to just stay in it. So discipline. There's no magic thing here. I mean, there's a willpower component to discipline, but there's just a deep desire of wanting something. And that's why I go back to purpose and compelling vision, a compelling future. Jonathan, do you have kids?
I just had my second daughter 4 weeks ago.
I mean, it'd be fair to say probably you do anything for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? You do anything. So would you call that discipline, or would you call that just doing what's called for?
I mean, discipline is definitely a byproduct because I find my performance is 10x since the second child was born.
Yeah, but for them, if they imagine the worst scenario, there's a bus barreling down your street, you'd flat out run in front of it to do whatever. That's not a disciplined mind. In that case, that's what's called for because something is so important. The vision you hold for them, the purpose in your life to be a great provider, you do whatever it takes. And when you think about your potential as a human, and so that's the compelling future and what that could look like and take shape for, and you're connected to something much bigger than you, you'll do whatever it takes. And in the times when you are in a downtrodden, you're tired or whatever, that's where the discipline is required. I'm not well equipped to talk about discipline because I get to work with the most disciplined people. And what they talk about more than anything is like, hey, Doc, can you help me with discipline? They don't say that. They say, look, hold on, I've kind of lost track of like the big stuff. My purpose was this and my vision was this. So they're going to the big rocks, not the smaller rocks.
And I think that's such a powerful sentiment for people to kind of expand their aperture and see that the vision and the purpose are the guiding lights. I mean, you articulated it beautifully. I want to be respectful of your time. I feel like I could talk to you for another 5 hours. I'm sure you get that all the time, but I have one
No, man.
question.
Thank you for including me, Jonathan. Like, this has been fun. Like, and thanks for going along with it. I'm on my fourth cup of tea, and so I've got a little extra juice for you right now. So I just say thank you, man, for including me.
Yeah, are you kidding? I mean, funny story. I think I probably reached out, talk about persistence and everything. I think I probably reached out like 4 or 5 times. But over the course of that timeline, like I acquired more experience. I became more qualified. I honed my skill set. I brought on awesome guests, and now I can have a meaningful conversation like at this version of me with the legendary version of you, So like it's cool to get to this stage to know like, hey, I've earned it, right?
Yeah.
Like
Oh, that's so fun, man. That's so fun. I apparently I wasn't ready either. And so, yeah, it's cool. Yeah. Thank you so much. And congratulations on all your success. And
Thank you, likewise.
very cool, that you're doing it for others as well. So appreciate you.
Appreciate you. There's one more question that I pose to all my guests I'm not going to pose to you. If the future version of yourself from 10 years from now were to fly in and offer you some advice in order to get there, what do you think he would say to you?
I know for sure, flat out, the future version would not offer me advice because he would know that advice is just like not my jam. I don't take advice well, but the future version of me would look at me and the future version would ask a question. Are you honestly making a difference? I don't know how long I'm going to be here. And I feel like I've been afforded this rich set of insights on how people can flourish and live a great life. Sport is just one place, but are you honestly making a difference? And I'll tell you why that's so important is because there's a part of me that says, sell it all, go figure out how to just write everything and be a full-on monk, And then the other part's like, no, you like a nice house. You like nice vacation. You like, nice clothing and no, you're also part of this material experience too. So that's where I might get caught. Am I making a true difference with the insights that I understand at this place? So it'd be a question.
That is so profound.
Thanks, mate.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Michael Gervais, where can people keep up with your journey?
Well, they can keep up by first me asking you, the 10-year version of yourself, Jonathan, swoops back in. You can find me at findingmastery.com, all the Instagram handles, Michael Gervais. You can do all that. But we're not getting off this thing until I know. What is that version of you asking or saying?
I think you reoriented my perspective a lot because I just published today with Sahil Bloom, and we talked a lot about, and I talk a lot about in general, that the better the question, the better the answer. Quality of your life will be determined by the quality of the questions you ask. And I think following suit with yours, I'd want to make it a question, but what I believe I would tell myself, the advice is keep going, trust yourself, trust your intuition. Don't let the detractors win. Don't let the people that said this podcast wouldn't grow or that it's a thing. Don't let the people that tell you that you'd never get into college or be a lawyer or jump over a rope or do whatever the thing, all those doubters, just trust your instinct, trust your intuition, believe in yourself, and you will get where you're trying to go as long as you don't stop.
Come on, man. That's awesome. Let's do this on social. Let's hear what your community has to say. Can you just maybe send a post and about what we're talking about right here and tag me so I can follow along with what your people advice or a question their 10-year-older self would ask them, I'd love to know
100%.
what your community is about. Hey, listen, I'm going to speak to the listener now. Show up now. Show up. Jonathan wants to know. I want to know, like, what is it about for you? So that'd be fun. I'd love to catch a vibe on your community.
100%. Love to have you. You're the man. This was so
man.
cool. And until the next one.
Appreciate you.